Are you shy or not shy? That's the question, right? That's the question that you asked hundreds of high school boys over the years. Is that right?
Yes.
That's the question you asked them in a windowless room. Is that right?
There was a window on the door.
That window was covered, right?
Yes.
Nobody could see inside that room,
Yes.
right? The door was closed when you asked that question.
Yes.
You waited until you were alone in the room with them until you asked that question. Is that right?
I believe so.
You knew of the influence that you had over these kids, right?
As their coach?
As their coach, as their teacher, as a person in a position of authority, you knew that influence that you had over these kids.
Yes.
You knew that some of these kids would run through a wall if you told them to, right?
Yes.
You knew that that question was confusing, right?
I didn't at the time, no.
Over the years, there were students that were confused by that question. Is that right?
Yes.
You could have asked them, do you want to be clothed or unclothed for a test? Is that right?
Yes.
Right. You chose not to do that, and you chose to ask that question, shy or not shy, right?
That was the question I asked, yes.
You could have asked that question about whether they were going to wear clothing in any number of different ways, and you chose that confusing way. Isn't that right?
I did choose that way, yes.
You could have let students know prior to entering that room that you were going to ask them to get naked, right?
Yes.
You could have asked them before they were alone with you and told them about getting naked, right?
Yes.
You could have put it on that consent form, those consent forms that we see that are going home to the parents. You could have done that, right? And put that kids were going to be naked.
It's possible, yes.
And if it was on those forms, we saw there's a version of those forms that parents reviewed and signed. Parents would know that their kids were going to be alone and naked in a room with a coach. Is that right?
If it was on the consent form, they would know, correct.
That question, that shy or not shy question, that's the question you lied to police about, right?
Yes.
You've testified here today over the past few days about that you've had issues finding employment since 2021, since this all came to light. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you said it was a result of the media coverage. Is that right?
I believe I said that, yes.
You were hired in 2021 by Monsignor Clark, which was a Catholic school, right?
Yes.
Right. You didn't tell them that you had students alone, naked in a room with you for these fat tests, right?
No.
All right. You didn't tell them the reason for your departure from North Kingstown High School, did you?
No. I believe they did their own research.
The media has been here covering this trial, right?
Yes.
Tim White didn't lie to the school administration, did he?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
You lied to the school administration. That's what I'm
Well,
referring to, you.
Yes, I did, but you asked me about Tim White, so I didn't know the answer. Sorry.
The media, they didn't lie to the police. You did, right?
Yes.
Nobody from the media made you take high school boys into your office and ask them to strip naked, did they?
No.
It wasn't anybody in the media that was touching the intimate areas of high school boys. Isn't that right?
Correct.
Isn't the issue with you finding employment that you're not trustworthy?
You don't have to answer that, Mr. Thomas. That would be in the eyes of a prospective employer. And trustworthy encompasses a lot of different behaviors.
Is part of the reason that you're having difficulty finding employment because you lied to the police?
Don't answer that, Mr. Thomas. You would not know what it is in the state of mind of the police.
Well, you've admitted you lied to the police, right?
Yes.
And you've admitted that you lied to the school administration, right?
Yes.
All right. And those were situations where you were confronted, where your back was up against the wall and you were being confronted with this question about these boys being naked alone in a room with you, right?
I was being confronted about the testing program, yes.
And when your back was against the wall, you lied. You lied to the administration and you lied to the police, right?
Yes.
And you lied to Dr. Auger in 2018.
That would be the school, yes.
Right. And you lied to Sergeant Mulligan in 2021, right?
Yes.
And as you testify here today, you've sat here and you've listened to all of the witnesses, right? You've had the opportunity to listen to every single witness prior to you taking the stand and telling your story, right?
Correct.
All right. And you also had the opportunity, you've talked about the state providing you with discovery. You've had the opportunity to review all the discovery and go through it with your attorneys and look at everything, right?
Yes.
All right. And this is the first time that anyone is hearing this version of events, right?
Which I'm confused about which version of events you're referring to.
That you're admitting that these boys were naked alone in a room with you, right?
Oh, yes.
Right. You testified that you're telling the truth today because you're under oath and you take that seriously, right?
That's correct.
All right. And you didn't take it seriously when you were confronted by the superintendent, right?
I took it seriously, but it was about my job. I was concerned about my job.
Not serious enough to tell the truth, right?
I didn't tell the truth. That's correct.
And did you take it seriously when you were confronted by Sergeant Mulligan, when you were in the police station, confronted by Sergeant Mulligan? Did you take that seriously?
No.
And actually, in that interview, you talked about that you were going to try to cooperate with the investigation, right? You gave that statement, and you tried to lie your way through it and hope that it went away, right?
Try to cooperate by showing up to the interview. Yeah, I was there to cooperate at the interview. Yes.
All right. You showed up saying that you were going to cooperate, but then you actually lie in the interview, right? So it's not real cooperation.
Well, I was asked to come in for an interview and cooperate, and I did. But I did lie during the interview, correct?
Isn't part of the reason why you went to that interview was try to get information for yourself? Like you wanted to know who was behind this. You wanted more information, right?
Absolutely.
All right. And so it wasn't completely to cooperate with the investigation, right?
I would say it was to cooperate with the investigation, but it was also, I had interest too, knowing who was behind this. Was it the same person as 2018? Was it someone different?
So your version of cooperating with the investigation, Sergeant Mulligan's trying to figure out what's going on. He's had these boys who have come to him and told him that they were naked, alone in a room with you while you're touching their private areas, near their private areas, their groin, their inner thigh. And your version of cooperation is to lie to Sergeant Mulligan about that, right?
My version of cooperation was to come in. I did lie when I was there. As I said yesterday, I'm not proud of that fact. It shouldn't have been done, and I was wrong to do it.